She seemed to have special animus toward pro-life people.
Yes. Thank you for raising that. So I represent David Daleiden, who is one of the most courageous young Americans I've had the privilege to represent in my 31 years of practicing law. David went undercover in a long-form undercover investigation spanning years, posing as a purchaser of fetal tissue in order to expose Planned Parenthood and National Abortion Federation's systematic violation of federal law. It's illegal in the United States, as it should be in every civilized place, to buy fetal remains for any reason. But there's, in fact, a brisk trade in fetal remains. And Planned Parenthood and its members of the National Abortion Federation members were circumventing or flouting federal law by offering price lists for different parts of fetal remains. And, this is a con on multiple levels. So women who are unsure when they went into a abortion clinic what they should do. They're in a crisis, their boyfriend has abandoned them. One of the selling points used by these abortion merchants is, the remains of your child will go to a good cause. They'll be used for research. It's illegal to sell those remains, but actually Planned Parenthood clinics were caught offering them for sale to researchers. And so David busted them by taping in San Francisco hotel lobbies at abortion trade shows. Believe it or not, a National Abortion Federation runs trade shows for abortion providers. He collected this testimony, this evidence by himself and with a couple of other helpers over the years, and then exposed it in video recordings that he made public. Now, that would be called journalism, I think. It used to be called journalism. Hardly anybody does that work anymore, going undercover like he did. And it was very brave, and it was explosive. As a result of this testimony, several states opened up investigations, and in some states, public funding was stripped from these clinics who did this horrific act of selling human body parts, arms, legs, livers. I mean, there was a price list that these people were circulating. And so this was obviously very upsetting to Big Abortion. So Big Abortion, which is a big supporter of Kamala Harris and other big-time Democrats in California, they can be counted on regularly to contribute millions to their campaigns. So Big Abortion went to Kamala Harris and asked her to prosecute David Daleiden. Now, there's this pesky little problem called the First Amendment. And the First Amendment allows citizens to do journalism. And so multiple jurisdictions in the United States have ruled that journalists going undercover, even if there's a wiretapping statute, are not to be prosecuted for that because of the First Amendment. They're exercising their free speech rights. Well, California has a wiretapping law. It's never been used against a journalist. So it's a single-party consent state. So under the rule, both people have to consent to the taping. Now, the exception is if it's in a public place, which most of these tapings, arguably all of these tapings in California were made in a public place. So Kamala Harris ignored the First Amendment and custom made the first prosecution of a journalist in California history. So David Daleiden was indicted for undercover journalism 7 years ago. And his case has been pending now for 7 years in San Francisco Superior Court. Judge after judge after judge has not been willing to send a journalist to prison, not been willing to bring it to a head. And so people just keep changing assignments, and David remains on the hook, paying all this money to defend himself from the charge of doing journalism.
What penalties does he face?
He faces years in prison if he's convicted.
Did Kamala Harris prosecute any of the companies where people illegally selling baby parts?
No, of course not. There's been no accountability for them in California.
So she prosecuted the person who told the truth about what was happening, but not the people who were committing the crime.
That's correct.
That seems evil.
Well, it is evil. I mean, it's characteristic of her double standards and lack of morality throughout her entire professional life.